I created a tool that can help storytellers identify how dark a story is, as well as make tonal decisions. I've been obsessed with designing formulas and spectrums this year since I found I offer my best help to others when I can break down everything to the particulars. And in pursuing this fixation, I came to the topic of tone. Tone itself can be broken down into 5 components: graphicness, humor, violence, verisimilitude, and darkness. I know when most people speak about it though, they're referring to the darkness component. That's what I wish to focus on in this one, as I decided to dive deeper into this and see if I could identify each way this could manifest in stories. That brought me to what I'm now calling the Darkness Continuum. If you've a better name, I'm open to suggestions. I'm still workshopping the names. I'm also open to your thoughts on this in general, not to mention examples you feel can populate each field. It's all a work in progress. Regardless, I've broken down darkness into 5 categories: bright and cheerful, lightly challenging, balanced conflict, intense and grim, and deeply oppressive. In bright and cheerful stories, evil's impact on the story's world is minimal and often peripheral. It can exist, but it has little to no impact on the protagonist or the most innocent members of society. Conflicts tend to be resolved with minimal harm or danger. Themes of these stories tend to be uplifting, and the stories themselves focus on positive outcomes and resolutions. On the western side of the equation, you can think of shows like Bluey, The Amazing World of Gumball, and My Little Pony: Friendship is Magic. For more eastern examples, think stuff like My Neighbor Totoro, Ki-On, and Tamako Market. These stories tend to have a wide appeal, as they're suitable for all ages. They're great for escapism, as they provide an ideal escape from real-world troubles. And they're easy to follow, as their conflicts are typically resolved quickly and positively. If you are writing them, I'd be careful with these 3 things. First, they may lack the complexity and depth that some audiences crave. Second, they can be seen as overly predictable and simplistic by some. Third, you might not be able to explore the full range of human emotions and experiences in these. It is what it is. This isn't a criticism, just a statement that everything has its general pros and cons. If you do wish to get a bit more serious, that's where we go into the lightly challenging zone. In this, evil is present, but limited in its reach. It often affects secondary characters or the broader environment, but rarely protagonists directly. Furthermore, there can be some tension and conflict, but it's often resolved with minimal lasting damage. The overall tone does still remain hopeful and optimistic despite the challenges. Stories like Court Captor Sakura, Percy Jackson and the Olympians, the comedy Way of the House Husband, and so forth tend to slot in here. This tone is great for lightheartedness and mild conflicts, not to mention more manageable challenges. This tends to be more relatable and enjoyable level, plus, well, adventurous. In fact, young adult fiction, light fantasy, adventure stories, and magical realism are the ones I feel it's best suited for. Now, having said all that, the stakes might not be high enough to create intense drama or suspense, and it might not leave a lasting impact on an audience compared to darker tones. Again, it is what it is. Sometimes people prefer stuff. One story I read that went from lightly challenging to intense and grim made me quit the series, as the darker plot point robbed me of the reason I began reading. You decide what's best for the story you're telling. Oh, and last but not least, lightly challenging stories have quite potential for cliches, as writers can sometimes rely on familiar tropes and scenarios in it. So, keep an eye out for that. As you can guess from the name, balanced conflict is the middle of the road example. In these, evil directly affects the protagonist and those close to them, causing significant but not overwhelming harm. Themes may include loss, struggle, and moral complexity, but there's still a balance of hope and resolution. These stories often explore deeper emotional and psychological impacts without becoming overwhelmingly dark. Think of things like Full Metal Alchemist, the Harry Potter series, manga like Bartender, My Hero Academia, Spy Family, One Piece. This is actually my favorite tone to write in. Here, you aim for a balanced mixture of light and dark elements, which can offer a richer narrative experience. The audience can engage with multiple emotional levels, and it is often a versatile tone suitable to a wide range of genres and themes. Of course, this one risks inconsistency with balancing the tones, and it's a territory where things can potentially become too intense or complex for some audiences. The complexity issue is especially important to note, as it can require careful handling of one's themes and pacing. Still, it's my favorite. But I get that it's not for everybody or for every story, which is why I feel the need to mention the intense and grim level. In this, evil has a strong presence which directly harms the protagonist, innocent characters, and society at large. The themes in these include profound loss, corruption, and moral decay, with a focus on the struggle against these forces. These stories can include graphic or intense scenes, and the resolution tends to lean more towards bittersweet or ambiguous. This is where we lean towards stories like Psychopaths, Attack on Titan, Death Note, Jormungand, Black Lagoon, Fate Zero, Go-Go 13, Dead Man Wonderland. You know, despite what I said about balance conflicts being my favorite, I do end up experiencing a lot of darker stories. If I had to guess why, it's because of the tone strengths. Intense and grim tone stories tend to have a lot of higher stakes, which is great for keeping the audience on the edge of their seat. They also allow for deeper exploration of serious and often taboo subjects, which, as someone who finds the macabre fascinating to study, explains why I feel drawn to these types of stories. The characters often tend to be more morally complex with them too, with a lot of them being mavericks, everymen, and so on. It should go without saying that this tone is not suitable for younger or sensitive audiences, which narrows it in a bit. The things it explores can be disturbing and off-putting to some, and, honestly, it can be emotionally draining for both the writer and the audience at times. In fact, the only way to get more draining than this is to go to the darkest end of the spectrum with deeply oppressive stories. In deeply oppressive stories, evil is pervasive and deeply entrenched, affecting all aspects of the protagonist's life and the society they live in. Innocent and vulnerable characters are often targeted and harmed with impunity. The tone is consistently bleak, and the story may lack a clear resolution, focusing instead on the endurance or survival of the characters. Breaking Bad is an example I'd place in this territory, especially as the story goes on. I also believe that Berserk fits in this category, though I'm open to hearing arguments for it in the intense and grim category instead. Same goes with Made in Abyss. Oh, and I should add in stuff like American Psycho, Gone Girl, and Lord of the Flies while they're on my mind. Anyway, this tone here can leave a lasting impression on the audience. These are the types that often provoke deep thought and discussion, as it allows for the exploration of the darkest aspects of human nature and society. It provides the rawest, most unfiltered view of the world. And for this reason, it is incredibly challenging to write, as it can become overly bleak or gratuitously dark. As with grim and intense stories, it can be emotionally taxing, not to mention potentially depressing. For this reason, it appeals to a niche audience at best and always runs the risk of alienating the audience. Still, if your vision aligns with this, I say go for it. I just want you to do so with awareness of the risks. I could probably expand on all these categories as their own thing, such as common genres which use them, types of protagonists who appear, how to play to its strengths more or mitigate its weaknesses, etc. But those would all require their own separate videos. If you want those videos to exist, do stuff that helps this channel grow, like liking the video, sharing it in places where other writers go, and raising your voice in the comment section. I'll see you there.